We could soon see everything change in May, and I'm going to be talking about why. But first, I also want to address a few things happening around this space right now and how close we actually are to breaking out in a much larger way. And I'm not talking about just 100K for Bitcoin, I'm talking about upwards of 150,000 plus dollars for Bitcoin alone. And if you think that that's bullish for Bitcoin and only Bitcoin, I want you guys to understand that while we are pushing to 150K plus, we will also see Bitcoin dominance dropping, leading to one of the biggest alt seasons that we have ever witnessed around crypto. So first and foremost, welcome to the channel, everyone. My name is Nick. For those that are new to the channel, hopefully by the end of this video, you do become a subscriber. Also, do not forget to join the free Discord down in the description below. There's a lot of great insights in that Discord. You could also join the paid side as well to get alerts and get weekly updates. I do post 2 weekly updates every single week, so if you guys do want to go check that out, you guys are more than welcome to. Now, with that being said, let's actually talk about the green ocean in front of us of just great gains across the board. Now, there is some red, but for the most part, this is what the 1 week looks like. If we are looking at the weekly view here, it's a sea of green, and this is very good to see. We are starting to see a lot of altcoins riding the Bitcoin wave. Now, the big question is Bitcoin going to continue to break out? Right now, Bitcoin is sitting at about roughly almost $93,000. We did hit about 94.3K. If we are actually looking at the candles, it was about 94.5K. And now we're starting to have a nice little sell-off. Now, everyone is going to panic, but if you actually zoom out, this is not too bad at all. And if we look at the 1 month, again, this was just a small move so far. Now, I did expect this to actually sell off from that level, which I'll talk about why in terms of like the actual price chart. But I'm sure that everyone at this point is probably looking at XRP and they are wondering, why is XRP still stuck at like $2.17? Now, I have talked about the, the overall relationship with Bitcoin and Bitcoin dominance. When Bitcoin dominance is as high as it is right now, obviously, a lot of altcoins are not going to be doing extremely well. And that's mainly because, if we actually look at the others in terms like the altcoins outside of Bitcoin and even Ethereum, we could see that the altcoins since roughly, it's actually since like the summer of 2023, they've been pretty flat. Now, they did get a nice little spike here because they went from like 28.7% back in like the middle of November all the way up to about 33.1% in the month of December. That little spike there is what caused XRP to go from like sub 50 cents to $3.40 and HBAR going from like sub 5 cents to over like 30 some cents. Like that small move was the major deciding factor on how bullish altcoins were going to be. Now, just imagine if the others hit 50%. Which, yes, I do think that they will. In fact, I actually think that they hit higher than 50% this cycle, and I'll address that here in a second. But if we look back in time, like here's 2017, 2018, others had 53.1%. Back in 2021, this is like around May, others had about 37.2%, 41%. And then, of course, leading in to like November, about 44.6% or so. Today, there is a lot more. And by the way, this is November of 2022, not November of 2021, because if we go during that time, it was about like 40%. And then at some point in time here, it was like 41, 0.5% or so. But now today, we have a lot more altcoins in this space. And I do think that we're probably going to start to see some of the, like if we're talking about like XRP, I think XRP is going to take a large portion of dominance from the Bitcoin and Ethereum side this cycle, because I do suspect that XRP could very well push above Ethereum this cycle. I don't think that that's, a crazy idea or anything like that. But I also think that most of the utility-based projects in the space, HBAR, XLM, QNT, Algo, etc., I think that they're going to gain a lot as well. So I wouldn't mind seeing the others hit about 50% plus in market dominance. Again, we have to watch, wait, and see, but anywhere between like 40 to 50% is a safe bet in my opinion, or like around like the 35% to 50% level, which is still a pretty significant push from where we are at right now. I mean, we already did hit about 33.1 or so. Another like 10% from there would cause a lot of these altcoins to 5x to even 10x from their current levels. And on the lower side, in terms of like the lower market cap projects, upwards of like 30 to 50x. Now, if we're talking about XRP right now, XRP still looks pretty bullish. We do have higher lows here on this chart, and we also have higher highs. We started to have a slight breakout to the upside, but we failed to do so by trying to flip a major support zone. Once we flip this level, which is about $2.27. Once we flip this, I do suspect that we will range a little bit on it, form support, and then break to the upside. The next upside target is right around here, right? We're talking about like $2.45 to about $2.57, 58 cents. That's the next big target, because what we are mainly looking at here, because this is lower time frame trading over here. This is the lower time frame, higher highs and higher lows. We want to see macro higher highs. So we want to take out these highs, followed by these highs, followed by, of course, the main high of the cycle so far, which we will get to if Bitcoin can manage to break out here. Now, I have been focused on Bitcoin a lot more outside of XRP because Bitcoin is the major deciding factor. Now, we do have a few things that could definitely lead to Bitcoin breaking out in a big way. When we are talking about May, we're mainly talking about what the Fed is going to do. And I think that it all starts with this. So I saw a great post over on X, and it was actually from Bar Chart. And I said here, believe it or not, if history repeats, this will be extremely bullish for crypto. Now, what they posted was breaking. US banks. US banks just formed a death cross for the first time since March of 2023. Now, we don't know if this is going to lead to, banks collapsing again or anything like that. But if we do see banks sell off in another big way here and reject, I think that this would be extremely bullish, like I said, because if we go back to March of 2023, right, banks started to collapse on March 10th. Now, this continued all the way through May. During that time, here we have March 10th. March 10th marked the bottom for Bitcoin. I actually remember during this time, everyone said, wait until Monday's open. It's going to be extremely bearish for Bitcoin. Guys, this was the Monday candle for Bitcoin. So during that weekend, okay, from the bottom of the bank collapse to the top of just the Sunday candle, it was about 15%. By the end of Monday, it was a 26% jump off the lows. And we continued to push all through 2023 up until about roughly the end of April, where we did start to sell off into the summer. And then we started to bounce again in, June. And then we just kind of chopped sideways in this macro, sideways trend, waiting for something to happen. And then, of course, we did get the talks about ETFs around October, November, and then we started to pump again. Now, again, if we think about this, right, this entire move here was caused by banks collapsing all throughout, this time from like March through May. So if we're thinking about Bitcoin right now, I do think that if we had banks drop in value, not exactly implode or close down like Silicon Valley Bank and Signature and also First Republic Bank, but all they have to do is sell off, right? All they have to do is be bearish, and I think that would be enough to actually push Bitcoin even higher here. Now, are we thinking that this is the only thing that can cause Bitcoin to jump out? No. I think that Bitcoin right now is actually trading in a very, very bullish structure. A lot of people are saying that, oh, Bitcoin is so bearish. Where? Where are we seeing that? Because so far we have created higher highs on the lower time frame and higher lows. The structure here on Bitcoin is very bullish. We have a fair value gap down here about 88.4K to about 91.7K. I'm hoping that we actually avoid some of these lower end targets and just kind of maintain above 90.7K. Ultimately, all we have to do is hold above 87.5K and Bitcoin is fine. Now, the big thing that I'm watching for is that if we manage to clear 95K, these candles back here in the beginning of March, I do think that the next target here for Bitcoin is $150,000. Why do I say that? Well, because once we clear these highs, we are going to retest 99.5K roughly. We'll just say 100K, right? I do believe that we break over it, big psychological level, that will quickly push us to the highs of roughly like 110K. And from that point, we go into price discovery, where I do think 150K happens pretty quick. Why do I say pretty quick? Well, because if we go back here to the original trading pattern of the September into November timeframe, so we have these lower lows, right? We have the initial wick, the lower low, and then the lower low, right? If we go back here, we have the initial wick followed by a lower low. This was a higher low. We don't have the higher low over here except for this, trading pattern here. But the main thing that I'm actually looking at is the original impulsive move here. The original impulsive move did not break over the previous highs. In fact, we sold off initially. We are already pretty high here, which if we do sell off, I wouldn't mind, filling that fair value gap and then breaking to the upside. That would be the equivalent of this push here, where we do finally break over those highs, we chop a little bit more, and then we continue even higher. The main thing that I'm looking at here is how high Bitcoin climbed in a very short amount of time. The initial impulse move from the bottom of like the November 5th, November 4th candle to just the top of the November, this is November 11th. So November 11th candle, this was a gain of 33.73% in the time frame of like roughly, a week. Okay. If we're thinking about that, that is a $22,600 move on Bitcoin. If we fill this fair value gap completely, and we jump by 33%, just initially, this is not the full gain, that would take us to 120K. The full move here to just the initial local top of December 17th, because we did hit that top back in January as well, this was a gain of 61.5%. 61.5% would take us to $143,000. I don't think that it would be crazy to say that we push a little bit higher to 150K. Anywhere between 140 and 150K is fine by me. It doesn't have to be 150K exact, but this happened in the time frame of roughly 43 days from the bottom of the candle. Okay, this is a very fast move. I also think that we can do the same exact thing here now that we are starting to have a little bit of momentum brewing here. And also on the lower time frame structure, it looks like Bitcoin wants to break out. We already had a nice sweep of the lows here. We found support roughly around, I know that's going to look a little bit messy here, but we roughly found support around 92K. If we maintain 92K, it will be very bullish for us. But you can see that we have so many wicks to the upside already of like anywhere between 94 to almost 95K. It was like 94.5, 94.6K or so. We're trying to break out of that upper resistance level. The fact that Bitcoin has still been maintaining these highs over like 48 hours later, because again, we're now, 3 days into these highs, it should show you that this is actually a very strong move. It wasn't just a dead cat bounce. It wasn't just a, let's impulse up here and then dump out. No, this is actually a very strong move. And it reminds me of the initial impulse moves back here in the month of November. Like here, this is what we're talking about. This is exactly where I think that we kind of are here. But we have yet to actually clear those previous highs. So I'm waiting for us to clear those previous highs. We want to clear those previous highs. And until we get over like 95K, I don't think that there's going to be a major impulse move just yet brewing on this chart. But I do think that 150K is going to be next, the second that we clear these highs from the beginning of March. Now, do I think that the Fed could accelerate this? 100%. And the reason why I say that is because we're starting to hear Trump talking about Powell. We have here, I might call him, I believe he's making a mistake by not lowering interest rates. Check it out.
And Jerome Powell, during the Biden administration in the campaign, with inflation raging, he lowered interest rates 2 times. Now, with 2 consecutive months of inflation being down, all economic theory you learn in the 8th grade says it's time to cut rates when inflation is down. He's not done that. Have you had any direct conversation with him?
No, I haven't called him. I might call him. I haven't called him, but I believe he's making a mistake by not lowering interest rates. And I think as well as we're doing, we'd do much better. He's keeping rates too high. He historically has been late, except when it came to Biden. He was recommended by a certain person that I'm not particularly happy with, but he will hopefully do the right thing. The right thing is to lower interest rates, so we'll see what happens. I think we're...
Jerome Powell.
Now, to build upon that, we also have this one. New, Trump on fire and Fed Chair Powell. I have no intention of firing him. I would like to see him a little bit more active.
Late's not good.
Mr. President, you've said...
I don't want to talk about that because I have no intention of firing him.
Mr. President,
There are reports that you're considering doing something for moms across the country, giving them some type of bonus whenever they have a child. Are you considering that? Or are you
Sounds like a good idea to me. Yeah, please.
You have no intention of firing Jerome Powell because your economic advisor Kevin Hassett a few days ago said that you and people in the White House were studying this idea of possibly doing it before his term ends.
No.
Do you have any plans on doing it?
None whatsoever. Never did. The press runs away with things. No, I have no intention of firing him. I would like to see him be a little more active in terms of his idea to lower interest rates. This is a perfect time to lower interest rates. If he doesn't, is it the end? No, it's not. But it would be good timing. It could have taken place earlier. But no, I have no intention to fire him. I don't want to comment on that. That doesn't matter.
Now, if we are talking about this, and if we start to see the interest rates get cut, it would happen in the May meeting. This is May 6th through the 7th. Now, the 7th is the main target here. But this is why I think that May could be a huge month for crypto. If we get interest rate cuts happening in May, I do think that the M2 supply is going to explode. A lot of people have already been saying that the M2 supply is already, exploding to the upside. It definitely is moving, but it's nothing like too crazy just yet. Even over here we have from Crypto R Us, Bitcoin continues to mirror the global M2 money supply with a 12-week delay. If this pattern holds true, then the bottom is in. And this is exactly what we are watching here. And this is exactly why I said that 150K is going to be the next initial target. A lot of people are eyeing like 180K, 200K, even upwards of like 250 to like $300,000. In my opinion, when we really think about what's going on here, the 12-week, pattern in terms of like the delay, that would take us to about the middle of the summer. This is completely different compared to like previous cycles where, you go away in May and you come back after the summer because, again, May is typically a bearish month. If we see May become a very bullish month, then I do think that this pattern is true. And I do think that we will see, anywhere between like 150 to almost like $200,000 by the end of the summertime. And I also think that that's when alt season will also become a reality. And that's where XRP starts to hit, crazy highs. Altcoins go absolutely parabolic. But I'm definitely focused on this. I'm watching this closely, and I do think that everyone should pay attention to what happens in the month of May, because what the Fed does next could definitely impact these markets in a substantial way. And right now, with how the markets are reacting, I do think that, if what we see in the month of May is bullish from the Fed, then Bitcoin is going to surge over 100K very quick. The second that we break 95K, I think that we target 100K immediately after. It might just be a retest and then a rejection like we saw back here in like December. But I'm still eyeing 100K plus within the next roughly week and a half. I'll give it 2 weeks just to be conservative, but I think that it happens a lot quicker than that. The overall market over the last couple of weeks, I've been saying that it's ripe for a much larger move here. And that was when we were trading right around here. So I'm definitely watching closely for the coming weeks. I'm eyeing May for, the big news from the Fed. I do think that we are going to see the Fed cut rates. And I also think that we are going to see the Fed turn the printers back on as well. And the reason why I say that is because all other nations already started to print heavy. So it makes sense for the US to also print. And it definitely does help the trade war discussions and the ongoing, it allows us to not only stimulate the economy a little bit more, but we can prop up markets while the trade war definitely is a big problem and it impacts markets a little bit more. So it just allows us to keep everything flowing and keep everything in a good standing. So I do think that we print money very soon after we do cut rates. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord on the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.